September 23, 1944. The coral dust beneath Private First Class Eugene Coleman's boots grinds like crushed bone as he crouches behind a shattered palm stump on Peleliu Island. Through the wavering heat, he watches his squad leader, Sergeant William Hawkins, gesture frantically at the dark mouth of a Japanese bunker 70 yards ahead. The structure emerges from the limestone ridge like a malignant growth, its firing slit barely visible against the white coral backdrop. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work, so if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. Coleman adjusts the weight on his back, 70 pounds of fuel tanks, compressed nitrogen, hose, and ignition system. The M2O-2 Flamethrower, 7 seconds of burn time, 40 yards maximum effective range if the wind cooperates, 4 minutes average life expectancy for operators in combat, according to the whispers that circulate through the replacement depot. The mathematics are simple. Get within range, expose yourself to enemy fire, pull the trigger before a Japanese sniper makes you a human torch. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. What Coleman doesn't know yet, what none of the 28,000 Marines and Army infantry grinding through Peleliu's hellish landscape can fully comprehend, is that he's carrying the weapon that will redefine how America fights Japanese fortifications. The M2 Flamethrower, despised by those who carry it, feared beyond reason by those who face it, is about to prove itself the most effective bunker-clearing weapon in the Pacific War. But on this morning in September, with temperatures climbing past 100 degrees Fahrenheit and water supplies contaminated with gasoline residue, Coleman knows only one thing. Sergeant Hawkins is pointing at that bunker. Coleman is the flame operator. Someone has to burn them out. 5 months earlier, the story begins not in combat but in frustration. In a warehouse at Schofield Barracks, Hawaii, Chemical Warfare Service engineers gather around tables covered with technical drawings and after-action reports from Guadalcanal, Tarawa, and New Georgia. The reports tell a consistent, horrifying story. Japanese defensive tactics have evolved. No more banzai charges, no more meeting Americans on the beaches. Instead, the Imperial Japanese Army has perfected something far deadlier: underground fortresses, interconnected cave systems, reinforced concrete bunkers with interlocking fields of fire, positions that can withstand direct hits from 16-inch naval guns. Captain Harold Morrison spreads photographs across the table. Tarawa, November 1943. Reinforced coconut log pillboxes that absorbed 500-pound bombs without collapsing. Marines died by the hundreds trying to assault positions that conventional weapons couldn't touch. Artillery doesn't work, Morrison tells his engineering team. Naval bombardment doesn't work. Airstrikes don't work. The Japanese dig too deep, reinforce too heavily. We need something that doesn't just hit concrete. We need something that flows inside and kills everyone in there. The answer exists, theoretically. The M1 Flamethrower saw limited use on Guadalcanal in January 1943. Portable, man-carried, capable of projecting burning fuel at enemy positions. The concept was sound. The execution was catastrophic. Technical Sergeant James Whitmore pulls out the M1 evaluation reports. 68 pounds when fully loaded, 15 yards effective range, finicky hydrogen ignition system that failed in humid conditions, 7 bursts before empty, and the statistics that matter most to the men who carry it. 70% casualty rate among flamethrower operators. Some units reported 92% casualties. Whitmore explains, his finger tracing columns of combat data. When it fires, it clears bunkers effectively. The problem is the operator has to get within 15 yards of a fortified position bristling with machine guns. He's moving slow because he's carrying 70 pounds. The weapon is visible, distinctive. Japanese gunners know what it is, know what it means. They target flame operators first. The room falls silent. Every man present understands the equation. Flamethrowers save American lives by clearing bunkers without frontal assaults. But the men who carry flamethrowers die at rates that make even seasoned combat veterans balk. We need better range, Morrison concludes. We need reliable ignition. We need something lighter, something that gives the operator a chance to survive long enough to use it. The Chemical Warfare Service begins development of the M2 flamethrower in late 1943. The improvements seem modest on paper. Reduce weight to 68 pounds loaded, later models down to 43 pounds. Replace the unreliable hydrogen ignition with a cartridge system. Most critically, extend effective range to 20 yards, with maximum range pushing to 40 yards under optimal conditions. But the real revolution comes from chemistry, not engineering. In 1942, a research team at Harvard University develops napalm, naphthenic acid and palmitic acid, combined with gasoline to create a gel that sticks to surfaces and burns at 2,190 degrees Fahrenheit. Unlike gasoline, which explodes into a massive fireball and dissipates, napalm leaves the flamethrower as a tight, dark-colored jet stream. The implications transform everything. Napalm doesn't just burn, it adheres. When a stream of napalm enters a bunker through a firing slit, it splashes across walls, equipment, and human beings. Then it burns, and burns, and burns. Corporal Thomas Bennett tests the napalm-equipped M2O-2 at the Schofield Barracks, proving ground in July 1944. He aims at a concrete mock-up of a Japanese pillbox at 30 yards, squeezes the rear safety trigger, pulls the front ignition trigger. A lance of fire erupts from the nozzle, not the billowing orange bloom of burning gasoline, but a focused jet of dark flame that arcs through the Hawaiian morning and splashes through the pillbox, firing slit with surgical precision. Inside the mock-up, temperature sensors register 1,800 degrees within 2 seconds. "Jesus Christ," Bennett whispers, lowering the weapon. That's liquid hell. The first M2O-2 flamethrowers reach Marine units in the Pacific during late summer 1944, just in time for the Mariana Islands campaign. On Guam in August, flame operators report mixed results. The weapon works as advertised when it works. 40-yard range, reliable ignition, devastating effectiveness against fortified positions. But the psychological burden remains unchanged. Carrying a flamethrower makes you a target. Japanese defenders have learned to recognize the distinctive backpack silhouette. Snipers receive special orders. Kill flame operators first. Private First Class Robert Dunham, 21st Marines, records his experience in a letter home dated August 16, 1944. "They gave me the flame gun today. I asked why me. Sergeant said someone has to do it. I said I'd rather take my chances with a rifle. He said that's not how the Marines work. We all do what's needed. So I carry the flame gun, 70 pounds of fuel and nightmares. The evolution of American tactics happens through necessity and blood. Individual flamethrower operators working alone have low survival rates and limited effectiveness. Japanese bunkers often have multiple firing positions. One flame operator can burn out one position, but the moment he exposes himself, machine guns from supporting positions cut him down. By September 1944, Marine commanders develop integrated assault tactics. The method acquires a name that perfectly describes its brutal simplicity: Corkscrew and Blowtorch. The technique requires coordination between multiple weapon systems. First, Browning automatic rifle teams provide suppressive fire, pouring heavy volumes of automatic fire into enemy positions to keep defenders' heads down. Then the flamethrower operator approaches to within effective range, covered by riflemen with Thompson submachine guns for close-range security against Japanese counterattacks. The flame operator delivers 2 or 3 bursts into the bunker, each burst consuming precious fuel but ensuring thorough saturation. Napalm splashes through firing slits, ventilation shafts, and any opening in the fortification. Temperatures inside spike beyond survivability. Defenders die from thermal injury, smoke inhalation, or oxygen depletion as the flames consume available air. Finally, demolition teams move forward while the bunker is still burning. Satchel charges or dynamite collapses the structure, sealing it permanently or triggering rock slides that bury the position. The entire sequence, from initial suppressive fire to final demolition, takes 3 to 5 minutes when executed properly. The method proves devastatingly effective, but requires resources most rifle companies don't possess. Individual squads have 1 or 2 flamethrowers at most. Coordinating combined arms assault against heavily fortified positions demands more organization. The Marine Corps responds by restructuring. By mid-1944, the F-Series division structure includes 243 flamethrowers distributed throughout the division. Each regiment receives 81 flamethrowers. More importantly, specialized assault platoons form within each regiment. Major Woodson Tucker, Division Chemical Officer for the American Division, pioneers the assault platoon concept in February 1944. His unit consists of a SAME, 5-man headquarters, and 6 4-man squads, each with 2 flamethrowers. The platoon trains intensively in coordinated tactics until squad members can execute corkscrew and blowtorch procedures in their sleep. The difference is professionalization, Tucker explains in a training memo dated March 1944. Previous doctrine had flamethrowers distributed to rifle companies, operated by whoever got assigned the weapon that day. Poor training, poor tactics, high casualties. Assault platoons are specialists. They train together, fight together, develop expertise in bunker reduction. Survival rates improve. Effectiveness improves. Most importantly, Marine casualties in assault sectors decrease. The statistics support Tucker's assessment. Units equipped with assault platoons report 40% lower casualties when clearing fortified positions compared to units using ad hoc flamethrower teams. The specialized approach saves lives on both sides of the weapon, reducing casualties among flame operators while accelerating the pace of bunker clearance. But all the training, all the tactical evolution, all the improvements to the M2 flamethrower system mean nothing until tested against the most sophisticated Japanese defensive network yet encountered. That test comes in September 1944 on a small coral island shaped like a lobster claw, Peleliu. 6 miles long, 2 miles wide, part of the Palau chain in the western Caroline Islands, home to an airfield that American planners believe threatens future operations in the Philippines. Home to 10,500 Japanese defenders who have spent the previous 8 months transforming the island into an underground fortress. Colonel Kunio Nakagawa commands the Japanese 2nd Infantry Regiment, 14th Division. He understands that 1944 is not 1942. The era of Japanese offensive operations has ended. The era of defense in depth has begun. His orders from Imperial General Headquarters are explicit. Make the Americans pay maximum cost for every yard gained. Nakagawa implements Fukaku tactics, the strategy of fortified resistance developed after catastrophic Japanese losses at Tarawa and Kwajalein. No banzai charges, no glorious deaths on the beaches. Instead, leverage natural terrain to create killing zones. Force the Americans into a war of attrition, where every bunker, every cave, every fortified position must be taken through direct assault. Peleliu's geology provides ideal defensive terrain. The Umabrogel Mountains, later nicknamed Bloody Nose Ridge by Marines who bleed trying to take them, consist of raised coral and limestone riddled with natural caves. Japanese engineers spend months expanding these caves, connecting them with tunnels, reinforcing positions with concrete and steel. The result is unprecedented. 500 interconnected defensive positions, caves large enough to shelter entire companies, armored steel doors protecting artillery pieces and machine gun nests, ventilation shafts that prevent smoke buildup, multiple exits allowing defenders to evacuate positions under fire and reoccupy them after American troops pass. Bunkers and pillboxes dot the surface, positioned to create interlocking fields of fire. Clear one position, advance, and suddenly take fire from bunkers you already cleared, now reoccupied through underground tunnels. The defensive network resembles a 3-dimensional chessboard, where pieces move through hidden passages. On September 15, 1944, the 1st Marine Division lands on Peleliu's western beaches. Major General William Rupertus, division commander, has predicted publicly that the island will fall within 4 days. 5, at most. His confidence stems from the assumption that 3 days of naval bombardment and weeks of airstrikes have destroyed most Japanese defenses. American intelligence has failed catastrophically. The constant bombing and shelling accomplished almost nothing against underground positions. Nakagawa's troops waited out the bombardment in their caves, then emerged when the Americans landed. The Marines expect light resistance. They encounter hell. D-Day casualties exceed 1,000 men. Hidden Japanese guns devastate landing craft and troops pinned on the beaches. Water supplies prove contaminated with gasoline from inadequately cleaned drums. Temperatures soar past 100 degrees. The predicted 4-day operation becomes a grinding, bloody siege. Private First Class Eugene Coleman lands on White Beach with Company K, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines on D-Day. He carries a Browning automatic rifle initially, part of a fire support team. On September 20th, his squad's flamethrower operator, Private William Glover, is shot through the chest while approaching a bunker. Sergeant Hawkins looks at Coleman. "You're trained on the flame gun." Coleman nods. Every Marine receives basic flamethrower familiarization. Knowing how to operate the weapon and being willing to carry it into combat are different questions. "Glover's dead," Hawkins states flatly. "Someone needs to carry the flame gun." "That someone is you." Coleman shoulders the M2-2. 70 pounds of weight settles onto his back. The fuel tanks press against his spine. The hose loops to his right hand, ending in the ignition gun with its 2 triggers. He checks the pressure gauge. Nitrogen tank shows full. Fuel tanks filled with napalm gel. "Don't think about it," Hawkins advises. "When I point, you burn. Keep moving. Stay behind cover until you're in range, then hit them fast and get down. You live by being quick and accurate." On September 23rd, Coleman's platoon receives orders to clear the southern approach to the Umurbrogol. Intelligence reports a defensive line of bunkers and cave positions blocking the advance toward Bloody Nose Ridge. Aerial reconnaissance identifies at least 20 fortified positions in the sector. Ground truth will prove far worse. The platoon moves out at 0600, moving cautiously through terrain that offers no safety. Shattered coral provides jagged cover, but also cuts through uniforms and skin. The heat builds rapidly despite the early hour. By 0700, temperatures exceed 90 degrees. At 0720, the first bunker comes into view. Concrete and coral construction, partially concealed by shattered palm stumps and coral debris. A single firing slit faces their approach route. No visible activity, but everyone knows better than to assume abandonment. Japanese defenders wait silently for Americans to close within killing range before opening fire. "Coleman," Hawkins signals. "That's yours. This is the moment. The transition from training to reality." Coleman checks his weapon one final time. Pressure good. Ignition cartridge loaded. Safety off. He looks at the bunker, measuring distance. 60 yards. Too far. He needs to get to 40 yards for effective range, 30 yards for certainty. "Covering fire," Hawkins shouts. 2 BAR teams open up, pouring 20 rounds each into the bunker's firing slit. The noise is tremendous, the visual effect minimal. Bullets spark off concrete and disappear into darkness, but the psychological effect matters. Defenders inside instinctively duck away from the firing slit as bullets crack through the opening. Coleman moves. Not running, the weight prevents that, but advancing in a rapid crouch, using every scrap of cover. 50 yards, 45 yards, 40 yards. The firing slit erupts. A Japanese Type 92 heavy machine gun opens fire, 7.7mm rounds snapping past Coleman's head. He drops behind a coral outcropping, heart hammering. The machine gun traverses, searching. More BAR fire. This time augmented by Thompson submachine guns from security elements. The volume of fire forces the Japanese gunner back from his sights momentarily. Coleman rises, shoulders the flamethrower gun, aims at the firing slit, now 35 yards distant, opens the regulator valve, squeezes the rear safety trigger, pulls the front ignition trigger. The M2-2 responds perfectly. A lance of dark flame erupts from the nozzle, arcing through the morning air like liquid death. The napalm stream strikes the concrete surrounding the firing slit, splashes through the opening, flows inside the bunker like burning water seeking the lowest ground. Coleman holds the trigger for 3 seconds. The stream maintains perfect trajectory, pumping gel fuel into the fortification. He releases. The flame cuts off. Black smoke pours from the firing slit. No more machine gun fire. Inside the bunker, temperatures have spiked beyond 1,500 degrees. Napalm adheres to everything it touches, burning with sustained intensity. The 3-man machine gun crew dies within seconds, killed by thermal injury and smoke inhalation. The concrete walls trap heat, turning the defensive position into a crematorium. "Move up," Hawkins orders. "Demolitions! Finish it!" 2 Marines carrying satchel charges rush forward while the bunker still burns. They jam 20 pounds of explosives against the wall, light the fuse, retreat. The explosion brings down part of the ceiling, sealing the position permanently. 1 bunker cleared. The platoon advances. Over the next 3 hours, Coleman's unit encounters 16 more fortified positions. Not all are simple bunkers. Some are cave entrances, leading to larger underground complexes. Some are pillboxes with multiple firing ports. Each requires the same brutal sequence: suppressive fire, flamethrower approach, burn, demolish, move forward. Coleman becomes mechanical. The fear doesn't disappear, but training and repetition create a rhythm. Hawkins points. Coleman moves forward under covering fire, burns out the position, drops behind cover while demolitions finish the job. Advance to the next target. By 10:30, Coleman's fuel tanks read 1/4 full. He's expended 75% of his napalm supply clearing positions. Each burst consumes precious fuel, but each burst also means Marines don't have to frontally assault machine gun nests with rifles and grenades. The 17th position proves different. Not a bunker, but a cave entrance at the base of a coral ridge, wide enough to drive a truck through. Intelligence reports indicate this cave connects to an extensive tunnel network, possibly holding a company-sized unit. "We need to seal that," Hawkins says, studying the opening through field glasses. "But I don't want to send Coleman into that. Too big, too many unknowns." Lieutenant Robert Anderson, platoon commander, makes the decision. "We'll use all available flame operators, hit it from 3 angles simultaneously, saturate the entrance with fire, then bring up engineers with enough explosives to collapse the opening. 3 flame operators, including Coleman, position themselves at different approach angles. 2 more are in reserve, ready to move forward if the first team's tanks run dry." The tactic represents evolved doctrine, using concentrated flamethrower fire to overwhelm positions too large for a single operator. At Lieutenant Anderson's signal, all 3 operators open fire simultaneously. 9 lances of flame converge on the cave mouth, pumping napalm into the darkness. The visual effect is apocalyptic. Fire flows like liquid into the cave, spreading along the floor, splashing up walls, seeking every recess and corner. The temperature inside the cave system spikes catastrophically. Japanese defenders deep in the tunnels, believing themselves safe from surface weapons, suddenly face an environment approaching blast furnace conditions. Smoke fills the tunnel network. Oxygen levels plummet as flames consume available air. Coleman maintains his stream for 5 seconds, the longest burst he's fired all day. His tanks register nearly empty when he releases the trigger. The other 2 operators finish their bursts. The cave entrance glows red-orange from residual fire. Engineers rush forward with 200 pounds of dynamite, enough to trigger a rock slide. They place charges at load-bearing points in the coral surrounding the cave mouth, wire them together, retreat to safe distance. The explosion brings down half the ridge face, burying the cave entrance under thousands of tons of coral. From inside the sealed tunnel system, no survivors emerge. Post-battle estimates suggest 80 to 100 Japanese troops died in that single complex, either killed by the flamethrower assault or trapped by the subsequent cave-in. By 1300 hours, Coleman's platoon has cleared 47 fortified positions in their assigned sector, 47 bunkers, pillboxes, and cave entrances neutralized in 3 hours of sustained combat. The statistics represent an unprecedented pace of bunker reduction. Casualties in Coleman's unit: 2 dead, 5 wounded. None of the wounded are flame operators, a statistical anomaly that speaks to the effectiveness of corkscrew and blowtorch tactics. Traditional frontal assault methods might have cleared the same positions over days rather than hours, at the cost of dozens of casualties. Coleman collapses behind a coral outcropping, dropping the empty flamethrower from his shoulders. His hands shake uncontrollably. The smell of burning napalm clings to his uniform. His skin seems to have seeped into his bones. In 3 hours, he has killed perhaps 200 enemy soldiers through thermal injury and smoke inhalation. Sergeant Hawkins settles beside him, offers a canteen of precious clean water. "You did good work today, Coleman. Saved a lot of Marine lives. That's what matters." Coleman drinks, says nothing. What is there to say? The mathematics are undeniable. 47 positions cleared means dozens, perhaps hundreds of Marines didn't have to charge machine gun nests with rifles. The flamethrower, brutal as it is, saves American lives by making Japanese defensive positions untenable. But the cost haunts everyone involved. The screams, mercifully brief, when napalm contacts human flesh, the smoke pouring from sealed bunkers. The knowledge that you're incinerating human beings, reducing them to ash and bone fragments. "Don't think about it," Hawkins repeats, his earlier advice now carrying weight of experience. "You did what you had to do. We all do what we have to do. That's how this works." The tactical success achieved by Coleman's platoon on September 23rd represents a microcosm of the larger transformation occurring across Peleliu. The M2 flamethrower, properly employed within integrated assault teams, is proving to be the decisive weapon against Japanese fortifications that were supposed to be impregnable. Colonel Kunio Nakagawa, observing the battle from his command post deep beneath the Uma Brogal, receives increasingly desperate reports. Positions that were designed to hold for weeks are falling in hours. The underground fortress, conceived as an impenetrable defensive network, has become a liability. American flame operators are systematically turning caves and tunnels into death traps. On September 24th, Nakagawa issues emergency tactical guidance to all surviving units. American flame weapons present unprecedented threat. Priority targets: soldiers carrying distinctive backpack equipment. All machine gunners ordered to target flame operators first. Positions under flame attack. Evacuate through tunnel connections. Reoccupy after American advance. Do not remain in sealed positions when flames penetrate. The guidance reveals Japanese recognition of a fundamental problem. The M2 flamethrower exploits the primary strength of Japanese defensive tactics' underground fortifications and transforms that strength into catastrophic weakness. Positions designed to withstand artillery and naval bombardment cannot resist fire that flows through every opening and consumes oxygen. But Nakagawa's tactical adjustments come too late. By late September, Marine assault platoons have refined their techniques to near perfection. The coordination between suppressive fire teams, flame operators, and demolition squads achieves devastating efficiency. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. Staff Sergeant Michael Torres, commanding 1st Platoon, Company L, 5th Marines, exemplifies the evolved approach. His assault platoon operates with mechanical precision, honed through weeks of continuous combat. On September 27th, Torres receives orders to clear the approaches to Hill 100, a coral ridge honeycombed with Japanese positions. Torres assembles his squad leaders for mission planning. Unlike earlier operations where assault tactics were improvised, Torres employs systematic analysis. He studies aerial reconnaissance photographs, identifying potential bunker locations based on fields of fire and natural defensive terrain. He plots approach routes that maximize available cover. He designates specific roles for each fire team. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So, if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. 1st Squad, BAR Suppression. You put enough automatic fire downrange that defenders can't effectively return fire. Second squad, flame operators and security. You burn them out. Third squad, demolitions and reserve. You seal completed positions and provide backup if first or second squad takes casualties. Questions? No questions. The platoon has executed these missions dozens of times. The process has become routine, which Torres knows is both advantage and danger. Routine breeds complacency. Complacency gets Marines killed. At 0700, the platoon moves out. Hill 100 rises 200 yards ahead, its coral slopes pockmarked with cave entrances and bunker positions. Intelligence estimates 30 to 50 defensive positions in the target area. Torres estimates higher. Japanese defenders have proven adept at camouflaging positions until Americans close within killing range. The first position reveals itself at 0745 when a Nambu Type 96 light machine gun opens fire from a concealed pillbox. Bullets kick up coral dust across the platoon's approach route. Marines drop behind cover, already executing practiced responses. First squad, suppress that pillbox. Second squad, flank right and burn it. Third squad, stand by demolitions. 2 BAR gunners pour fire into the pillbox's firing slit. The volume isn't enough to penetrate concrete, but it's enough to force the Japanese gunner away from his sights. Private First Class James Nakamura, flame operator, uses the covering fire to advance within range. Nakamura, a Japanese-American from California's Central Valley, volunteered for flamethrower duty despite or perhaps because of the irony of his ancestry. "My parents are in Manzanar internment camp," he once explained to Torres. "I'm here fighting to prove American loyalty. The flame gun is how I prove it." Nakamura reaches effective range, shoulders his M2-2, fires a 3-second burst. Napalm flows through the pillbox, firing slit with practiced precision. The machine gun falls silent. Smoke pours from ventilation openings. Demolitions team rushes forward. 20 pounds of TNT collapses the structure. First position cleared. Time elapsed. 4 minutes. The platoon advances. Over the next hour, Torres's platoon clears 12 positions using identical tactics. The efficiency is remarkable, the cost minimal. No friendly casualties. Japanese defenders die by the dozens, incinerated or trapped by cave-ins, but Marine casualties remain 0. The 13th position proves different. Not a surface bunker, but a large cave complex at the base of Hill 100, with multiple entrance points visible from their position. Smoke drifts from several openings, suggesting recent occupation and possibly cooking fires. Torres calls forward his senior flame operator, Corporal Robert Walsh. "What do you think? How many entrance points?" Walsh studies the cave system through field glasses. "I count 5 visible entrances. Probably more we can't see. That's a major position. Maybe company-sized garrison. Single operator won't have enough fuel to saturate all entrance points." Torres makes the decision. "We'll use all 6 flame operators simultaneously. Hit every visible entrance at the same time, overwhelm their ability to evacuate through tunnels. Then we bring up engineers with enough explosive to seal the entire complex." The tactic represents the ultimate evolution of flamethrower employment, coordinated, simultaneous assault on multiple points. 6 flame operators position themselves at different entrance points. Supporting infantry provides security and suppressive fire. Engineers stand ready with 500 pounds of dynamite. At Torres's signal, 6 M2-2 flamethrowers open fire. The visual effect is overwhelming. Flame streams converge on the cave system from multiple directions, pumping hundreds of gallons of napalm gel into the underground complex. Inside the cave network, Japanese defenders face Armageddon. Napalm flows through tunnels like burning rivers, spreading along floors, splashing up walls, filling chambers with flame and smoke. The temperature spikes beyond survivability. Oxygen levels crash as fire consumes available air. Some Japanese soldiers attempt to evacuate through tunnel exits, only to encounter flame operators positioned at alternate entrances. Others retreat deeper into the complex, seeking safety in interior chambers, but smoke and heat penetrate everywhere. The underground fortress becomes a crematorium. The flame assault lasts 20 seconds. All 6 operators expend their remaining fuel, pumping every available gallon into the cave system. When they cease fire, smoke billows from every entrance point, black and thick with the smell of burned petroleum and charred flesh. Engineers move forward. 500 pounds of dynamite, placed at strategic points around the cave entrances, enough explosive to trigger a massive rockslide. The charges detonate simultaneously. Half of Hill 100's lower slope collapses, burying the cave complex under thousands of tons of coral and limestone. From inside the sealed caves, no survivors emerge. No one ever escapes. Post-battle assessments, based on cave capacity and captured Japanese records, estimate between 250 and 300 enemy soldiers died in that single assault, killed by flame, smoke, heat, or burial. All in less than 5 minutes of combat. Torres's platoon casualties: 0. Not a single Marine wounded during the entire operation. The statistics tell the story that will reshape American military doctrine for decades. Between September 15th and September 30th, 1944, Marine assault platoons on Peleliu clear more than 800 fortified positions using M2 flamethrowers and integrated assault tactics. Japanese casualties from flame weapons, estimated at 4,000 to 5,000 killed. Marine casualties in flame-supported operations, 40% lower than in sectors without specialized assault platoons. The M2 flamethrower has proven itself not just effective but decisively superior to conventional assault methods. Bunkers that might require hours of bombardment and multiple infantry assaults can be neutralized in minutes with proper flame employment. Cave complexes that conventional weapons cannot touch become death traps when napalm flows through their tunnels. But the weapon's effectiveness comes at a psychological cost that commanders are only beginning to comprehend. The men who operate flamethrowers, the Marines who burn other human beings alive as their daily mission, carry burdens that conventional infantry cannot imagine. Private First Class Eugene Coleman, who cleared 47 positions in 3 hours on September 23rd, begins experiencing symptoms that will later be identified as post-traumatic stress: night terrors, inability to eat, violent trembling that persists for hours after combat operations. The smell of burning gasoline triggers panic attacks. I see them burning every time I close my eyes, Coleman tells Navy Corpsman David Mitchell during a medical evaluation in early October. I know they would have killed me if they got the chance. I know the flame gun saved Marine lives. But I still see them burning. I hear them screaming. It never stops. Military psychiatry in 1944 lacks understanding of what later generations will call combat stress reaction or post-traumatic stress disorder. His only prescription: return to duty, avoid dwelling on combat experiences, maintain focus on mission objectives. Coleman returns to his unit, continues operating the flamethrower, clears dozens more positions over the following weeks, functions effectively in combat despite internal torment. The dichotomy between external effectiveness and internal collapse becomes common among flame operators throughout the Pacific Campaign. Corporal Robert Walsh, Torres's senior flame operator, develops his own coping mechanism. He stops thinking of targets as human beings. They're bunkers, he explains to replacement flame operators during training. Just bunkers that need clearing. Don't think about what's inside. Think about the structure. Aim for the firing slit. Count 3 seconds. Release trigger. Move to next target. It's just bunkers. The psychological compartmentalization helps Walsh survive mentally, but the strategy has limits. After the war, Walsh will spend 30 years avoiding discussions about Peleliu, will decline veteran reunions, will wake, screaming twice a week for decades. The bunkers in his dreams very much contain people. The Japanese perspective on flamethrower warfare reveals equal psychological trauma, compounded by the weapon's capacity to induce primal terror. Private Takeshi Yamamoto, captured on Peleliu after being trapped in a collapsed cave system, provides rare testimony about experiencing American flame attacks from the receiving end. We heard rumors about American fire weapons, Yamamoto tells American intelligence officers during his debriefing. But rumors cannot prepare you for reality. The flame comes through small openings and grows inside the cave, spreading like water but burning like the sun. The heat becomes unbearable instantly. The smoke fills your lungs. You cannot breathe. You cannot see. You cannot escape. Yamamoto's hands shake as he continues. Some men tried to run toward the cave entrance, toward the flame, because dying quickly in fire seemed better than suffocating slowly in smoke. Others retreated deeper into tunnels, hoping for safety that did not exist. Some men killed themselves with grenades rather than burn. The flame weapon destroys not just bodies but minds. It creates terror that breaks even the strongest soldiers. Japanese military analysis of flamethrower effectiveness appears in captured documents from 31st Army Headquarters, dated October 1944. The assessment is brutally honest. American flame weapons have rendered traditional underground defensive tactics obsolete. Positions that could withstand artillery and naval bombardment for weeks fall to flame attacks in minutes. No countermeasure exists. Units facing flame assault experience 90% casualties. Survivors exhibit severe psychological damage that prevents effective return to combat. The analysis concludes with a recommendation that Imperial General Headquarters will never implement. Future defensive operations should avoid underground fortifications that can be sealed and burned. Surface positions with multiple escape routes preferred, despite increased vulnerability to conventional weapons. Flame weapons represent existential threat to current Japanese defensive doctrine. But by late October 1944, changing tactics is impossible. The absolute national defense zone requires exactly the type of fortified positions that flamethrowers exploit most effectively. Japanese defenders on remaining Pacific islands Iwo Jima, Okinawa, the Philippines continue constructing underground fortress networks, even as reports from Peleliu confirm these positions have become crematoriums. The Battle of Peleliu officially concludes on November 27, 1944, though American forces don't achieve complete control until February 1945, when the last Japanese holdouts are eliminated. The cost exceeds every prediction. American casualties, approximately 10,000, including 1,900 killed. Japanese casualties, approximately 10,700, with only 200 captured alive. Major General William Rupertus's prediction of a 4-day operation has become a 73-day nightmare, the highest casualty rate of any amphibious assault in the Pacific War. Historians will later debate whether Peleliu's capture was strategically necessary. MacArthur's forces successfully invade the Philippines without requiring Peleliu's airfield. The island's value proves minimal. The cost proves catastrophic. But within the larger strategic failure, tactical lessons emerge that will save thousands of American lives in future operations. The M2 flamethrower, properly employed by specialized assault platoons using integrated tactics, proves decisively effective against fortified positions. The weapon that flame operators despise and Japanese defenders fear has become the key to neutralizing underground defensive networks. The Marine Corps immediately expands flamethrower production and training. By December 1944, assault platoon structure becomes standard across all Marine divisions. The Corkscrew and Blowtorch technique receives formal doctrinal recognition. Flamethrower operator training intensifies, with emphasis on both technical proficiency and psychological preparation. The Chemical Warfare Service accelerates M2 improvements. The M2A1-2 variant, introduced in early 1945, incorporates lessons from Peleliu combat. Weight reduced to 43 pounds when loaded. Improved ignition system with higher reliability. Enhanced pressure regulation for more consistent stream characteristics. Range remains 40 yards maximum, but accuracy and fuel efficiency improve significantly. Most critically, the Marine Corps begins addressing the psychological burden on flame operators. Rotation policies ensure no Marine operates a flamethrower for more than 60 days of continuous combat. Specialized medical protocols recognize the unique stress associated with flame weapons. Provisions for psychological evaluation and treatment, primitive by modern standards, but revolutionary for 1944, enter official policy. Private First Class Eugene Coleman receives rotation orders on November 10, 1944. After 48 days operating a flamethrower in continuous combat, he is reassigned to a rifle company in a support role. The decision comes too late to prevent psychological damage, but it potentially saves Coleman's life. "I don't know if I can do this anymore," Coleman tells Sergeant Hawkins during his final day as a flame operator. "I've cleared more than 200 positions, killed maybe 1,000 enemy soldiers, every one of them burned to death because I pulled a trigger. That's going to be with me forever." Hawkins, who has watched dozens of flame operators cycle through his platoon over 2 months of combat, offers the only comfort he can. "You did what needed doing. Marines are alive today because bunkers got cleared without frontal assaults. That's your legacy, not the burning, the lives saved." Coleman's legacy extends far beyond individual actions. His 47 positions cleared in 3 hours on September 23rd becomes a case study in flamethrower employment doctrine. The after-action report, authored by Lieutenant Robert Anderson, circulates through Marine Corps training establishments as an example of optimal assault tactics. Integrated employment of suppressive fire, flame weapons, and demolitions enables rapid neutralization of fortified positions with minimal friendly casualties. Anderson writes in his report, "Success requires proper training, coordination, and psychological preparation. Flame operators must be specialists, not ad hoc assignments. Assault platoon structure provides framework for effective implementation." The report influences tactical doctrine across the Pacific Theater. Army units, initially skeptical of Marine Corps flamethrower emphasis, begin forming their own assault teams. Navy Seabees, already involved in producing tank-mounted flamethrowers, expand their role to include flame weapon maintenance and operator training. By January 1945, the M2 flamethrower has evolved from a specialized weapon of questionable value to a standard component of American assault operations against fortified positions. Every Marine division deploys with hundreds of flamethrowers and trained assault platoons. Army divisions incorporate similar structures. The flame weapon that operators hate becomes the weapon that commanders demand. The ultimate test comes on February 19, 1945, Iwo Jima. 8 square miles of volcanic rock honeycombed with Japanese tunnels and fortifications. 21,000 Japanese defenders, commanded by General Tadamichi Kuribayashi, who has studied reports from Peleliu and implemented countermeasures against flame tactics. Kuribayashi's defensive plan explicitly addresses flamethrower vulnerability. Construct multiple exits for all underground positions to prevent entrapment. Install blast doors to seal tunnel sections against flame penetration. Maintain mobile reserve capable of reoccupying cleared positions through underground movement. Target American flame operators before they reach effective range. The countermeasures prove partially effective. Japanese defenders on Iwo Jima inflict higher casualties on American flame operators than on Peleliu. Snipers specifically trained in anti-flamethrower tactics achieve disturbing success. Multiple exit points allow defenders to evacuate burning positions more effectively. But the fundamental problem remains unsolved. Underground fortifications, regardless of design improvements, cannot resist sustained flame assault. Napalm gel flows through narrow openings, finds alternate routes around blast doors, spreads through ventilation systems. Once flame enters a tunnel network, defending it becomes nearly impossible. Marine Corps flame operators on Iwo Jima clear more than 1,000 fortified positions over 36 days of combat. Tank-mounted flamethrowers, the M4A3R5 Zippo tanks that inspired the Peleliu infantry tactics, prove even more effective. The combination of portable M2, flamethrowers and armored flame tanks systematically dismantles Japanese defensive networks that conventional weapons cannot touch. Captain Frank Caldwell, company commander with the 26th Marines on Iwo Jima, provides assessment that becomes widely quoted in military history. "In my view, it was the flame tank more than any other supporting arm that won this battle. But the portable flamethrowers were equally critical. Every bunker we cleared with flames was a bunker our boys didn't have to die taking. The M2 flamethrower saved thousands of Marine lives on Iwo Jima." The statistics support Caldwell's conclusion. Marine casualties in flame-supported sectors on Iwo Jima run 35% lower than in sectors without dedicated assault platoons. Positions that might require hours of bombardment and multiple infantry assaults fall to flame attacks in minutes. The tactical efficiency directly translates to lives saved, but the weapon's effectiveness cannot obscure its brutal nature. Corporal Thomas Carlson, flame tank gunner, who fired the first shot at a Japanese pillbox on February 20, 1945, later testifies about the psychological cost. You could hear them screaming when the flame hit. Not for long, but you heard it. Sometimes at night, I still hear it. We did what we had to do, but I'll never forget the smell. Burning flesh mixed with sulfur from the volcanic rock. The moral complexity of flamethrower warfare haunts participants on both sides. The weapon is undeniably effective, saving countless lives by enabling rapid bunker clearance. But the method of killing burning enemy soldiers alive in sealed fortifications generates psychological trauma that affects flame operators, their units, and eventually the broader American public. Post-war analysis of flamethrower effectiveness produces conclusions that remain relevant to modern military ethics. The M2 flamethrower and its successors represent weapons that are tactically effective but psychologically devastating. They save lives by preventing costly frontal assaults, but they inflict deaths of such horrific nature that participants carry permanent psychological scars. The United States military continues employing flamethrowers through Korea and Vietnam, but gradually phases them out in the 1970s. Partly due to development of alternative weapons rocket launchers, precision-guided munitions that can neutralize fortified positions without requiring operators to close to 40-yard range. Partly due to changing ethical standards regarding incendiary weapons, partly due to recognition that psychological costs to flame operators outweigh tactical benefits. The Geneva Conventions never explicitly ban flamethrowers, but Protocol 3 of the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons restricts use of incendiary weapons against civilian populations. Modern military forces possess flamethrower equivalents, thermobaric weapons that achieve similar effects through different mechanisms. But the iconic image of a soldier carrying tanks of napalm and a flame gun has disappeared from contemporary warfare. Private First Class Eugene Coleman survives World War II, returns to Pennsylvania in December 1945, marries his high school sweetheart in March 1946, works 40 years as a machinist in Pittsburgh steel mills, raises 3 children, attends church every Sunday, lives an outwardly normal life. But Coleman never speaks about Peleliu. His wife knows he served in the Pacific, knows he earned a Bronze Star for actions in September 1944, knows the subject triggers reactions she doesn't understand. She learns not to ask. Coleman's children grow up aware their father fought in World War II but ignorant of specifics. They know he wakes screaming sometimes. They know certain smells, burning garbage, gasoline, wood smoke cause him to leave the room abruptly. They know not to press for stories. In 1989, Eugene Coleman receives an invitation to the annual Peleliu Survivors Reunion in Washington, D.C. 1st Marine Division veterans, now in their 60s and 70s, gather to remember battles fought 4 decades earlier. Coleman has never attended previous reunions. His wife encourages him to go. At the reunion, Coleman meets men from his old unit, faces aged, hair grey or gone, bodies carrying decades of wear, but voices familiar, mannerisms unchanged. They remember September 23, 1944. They remember the 47 positions cleared in 3 hours. They remember Coleman with the flamethrower, moving forward under fire, burning out bunkers while they provided cover. "You saved our lives that day." Staff Sergeant Michael Torres tells Coleman during a quiet moment between formal programs. Torres, now 70 years old and retired from the Postal Service, has traveled from Arizona for the reunion. "Those bunkers would have killed dozens of us if someone had to assault them with rifles. You carried the flame gun. You did the hard job. We made it home because of you." 44 years of suppressed emotion, guilt, shame, pride, horror, all surfacing simultaneously. Torres embraces him. Both men cry. 2 old warriors acknowledging shared trauma, shared survival, shared debt to those who didn't return. "I killed so many of them," Coleman whispers. "Burned them alive. I can still smell it." "They would have killed us," Torres responds gently. "That's war. Terrible, but necessary. You did what needed doing. That's all any of us can do." The reunion becomes cathartic for Coleman in ways he doesn't fully articulate. Being among men who understand, who shared the experience, who carry similar burdens, provides validation he's lacked for decades. He begins, hesitantly, telling stories to his children. Not graphic details, but acknowledgement of service, recognition of sacrifice. Coleman dies in 1998 at age 76. His obituary mentions World War II service with the 1st Marine Division, Bronze Star recipient, veteran of Peleliu campaign. Details remain sparse, but family members finally understand what shaped their father's quiet intensity, his occasional darkness, his lifelong avoidance of certain conversations. The M2 flamethrower itself transitions from combat weapon to museum artifact. Examples survive in military collections worldwide, physical remnants of a weapon system that defined Pacific Island warfare. The device seems primitive by modern standards, manual ignition, limited range, requiring operators to close with fortified positions while carrying explosive fuel. But the psychological impact transcends mechanical specifications. The M2 flamethrower represents a moment when American military necessity confronted the limits of acceptable methods. The weapon worked. It saved lives. It proved indispensable for neutralizing Japanese fortifications, yet it inflicted deaths so horrific that even victorious users carried permanent trauma. Today, military historians study flamethrower employment as case studies in tactical innovation and ethical complexity. The weapon illustrates how desperate circumstances drive development of extreme solutions. Japanese defensive tactics, particularly underground fortification networks, created problems that conventional weapons couldn't solve. The M2 flamethrower solved those problems, but created new moral and psychological challenges. Modern counterinsurgency operations face similar dilemmas. Enemies utilizing civilian infrastructure, underground tunnels, densely populated urban terrain create tactical problems that precision-guided munitions cannot always solve. The temptation exists to employ weapons that guarantee effectiveness, regardless of collateral damage or ethical cost. The flamethrower legacy serves as warning. Tactical effectiveness alone does not justify employment of weapons whose use permanently scars those who deploy them. The 47 bunkers cleared by Eugene Coleman in 3 hours on September 23, 1944, remain statistical notation in Marine Corps historical records. After-action reports document the operation with clinical precision. Positions neutralized, enemy casualties estimated, friendly casualties minimal. Mission success. But the human cost, the Japanese soldiers incinerated in their bunkers, the American flame operator who spent 53 years haunted by memories of that morning, the families on both sides who never fully understood what their loved ones experienced, defies quantification in after-action reports. War demands terrible choices. Sometimes the only options are terrible or worse. The M2 flamethrower represented a terrible choice that prevented worse outcomes. Marines who might have died assaulting fortified positions survived because flame operators burned out those positions first. The mathematics remain undeniable. Yet the legacy extends beyond mathematics. Every weapon leaves psychological imprints on those who employ it. The flamethrower's imprint went deeper than most, precisely because its method of killing was so viscerally horrific. Burning enemy soldiers alive, hearing their screams, smelling burning flesh, these experiences marked flame operators in ways that bullets and explosives did not. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe.